The storm is gone. You can see the water is very high. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said the rain inland, just not far, around like Plymouth, Beeville, and that area got torrential downpours of rain. And so that is a big reason for why the water is so high here. All that rain accumulates in the little off the roads and down the ditches and into the creeks, then into the bigger creeks, and then into the rivers, and then out here to the sound, and eventually out into the ocean. That's called a drainage basin or a watershed, and it's a very important geographic concept, because anywhere you go in the world, much of the way civilization is built, it's built around watersheds. People always needed water, and they needed water for their crops. But when you go out to the western United States, where it's dry, it's even more of a important concept to understand, because not just the groundwater, but also the subsurface water, the aquifers and whatnot. We, for the most part, have all the water we need out here in eastern North Carolina and the eastern United States for the most part. There's a little bit of an issue with getting enough water around the big cities, but the eastern United States is a very wet climate with lots of fresh water. But lots of places in the world, including the western United States, have limited amounts of fresh water. And so there's always a issue with people trying to figure out who gets what water and how to get more water and all of these types of things. But as far as the ecology goes, and just the way that it affects animals and nature, the watershed, separate from human civilization, is incredibly important and interesting. You can learn a lot about the way animals behave, and which animals live where, and why maybe they live where they live, what times a year the animals do different things. It has a lot to do with when it's wet and when it's dry, where you're at in the watershed. Out here where we have a brackish estuaries, the salt and the fresh water is mixing together, so that creates a unique environment. Lots of little critters to start their lives out here. Anyhow, the storm is gone. Also, I've been really paying attention to my circadian rhythm, and I've mentioned this before, but I think when you're young, you don't pay as much attention to these things. But the time of day that we're eating, we should eat enough every day that we don't put our bodies under stress, except for when occasionally we want to actually do like a fast. That means going for a period of time without eating, and we intentionally put our bodies under stress. But most of the time we want to eat the appropriate amount of food, not too much, not terribly too little, and we want to eat it spread out over the right amount of time during the day. There's different debates on what that is, but most of the time for a normal day, you want to try to eat all your meals in about half of the day. So from about a 12-hour period. And then you want to give yourself a break before you go to bed on a normal day, and that way you're not going to bed with a full stomach. But what I've noticed is, when you're paying really close attention to that, is it has a lot to do with how easy it is to get up in the morning. If you go to bed eating late at night, it's much harder to wake up in the morning. Now, that's not to say if you do something that's strenuous, or or whatever, and you need to eat late at night, I mean, that's okay. It's not like it's the end of the world. But or if you know that you've done something and you've exerted yourself and you're going to be sleeping late the next day, that's also fine. But if you're on a normal schedule, and you've eaten appropriately during the day, it's probably not as important when you're young, because your body's using a lot of calories because it's growing, so you don't have to really worry about it when you're little. But as you get a little bit older, and if you find that, hey, it's a little hard to get up in the morning, well, first thing is, did you go to bed early enough? Because especially when you're younger, you need more sleep. Young people need about 10 hours of sleep. Older people need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. But if you've gone to bed early and you're getting plenty of exercise and you're eating well, because if you eat junk food, that'll also make you not get as much rest. And all of those things, then you might want to think about, did I eat real late at night? Did I eat my dinner too late? Give yourself a little bit of time for your food to digest before you go to bed. That might be more important as you get a little bit older, but it definitely seems to help with getting up in the morning, is that if you don't go to bed where your body has to use a lot of energy to digest its food. So try to eat, a couple hours, at least 3 hours or so before bedtime. Eat your dinner, and then you'll be ready to get up in the morning. Again, there's exceptions to the rule, and it's probably not as important when you're little. When you're little, you might need to eat more because you're growing. But if you're playing sports and working out really hard, you might just need more food. You might have more time to get that food, because your bones and everything need it. But if you can, try to eat your meals, from breakfast in the morning to a reasonable, dinner time, and then give yourself a break. And if that doesn't help you now, of course, when you're a teenager, where it might not mean so much, when you get older, you might say, oh, that was good information, because now I'm in my 20s or my 30s or 40s, and I got a more normal routine, and I want to get up at a certain time, and this is really nice to just know this little thing helps, along with exercise and all this other stuff. I love you.